Today's the day to drive to the Hard Rock Cafe, but you're going to walk for babies. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Stevens Floor Covering Center on Highway 17 Bypass in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on Horry County's WalkAmerica Kickoff today, and we're visiting with one of its dedicated volunteers, Nick Sherfesee. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Thank you for coming in. 7 a.m. here.
Early.
Yeah, it's a little early, but at least it's easy to find out here on the bypass.
Very close, very convenient.
That's right,
Yeah.
not far from Wachovia.
Or home.
Or home.
Or
That's-
home.
Oh, do you live close by?
Fairly close by.
That's
so
great.
not
That's
far.
great. Yeah, you'll be heading into work from here. Well, thanks for coming in. It's so exciting to think we've gotten to the WalkAmerica Kickoff today.
Oh, man, it's going to be a great time. Everybody needs to really mark on their calendar 4:30 this afternoon at Hard Rock Cafe. It's
Right.
going to be a great kickoff.
You know, I was talking to Joe Fisher last week, and she said, I want folks to get there as early as possible. They can get there at 4. The parking will be tremendous. Obviously, all that ample parking out at the Hard Rock Cafe, they can get there early, and they've closed down the cafe between 4:30 and 6:30 to open it up for the March of Dimes.
Well, they've really done a great service for the March of Dimes, and we're so grateful to those folks for all that help.
Yeah.
And whenever there's an event at Hard Rock, that place always fills up. So we're just counting on a big crowd. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It cranks. Well, we'll get more into that and what all's going on. But real quick about yourself, Nick. Are you originally from the area?
No, sir. I'm just an interloper from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a stretch.
That's a stretch.
What brought you to the area, or even the Palmetto State?
Well, my father, his family, immigrated to Charleston in the early 1800s, and he graduated from the Citadel in 1929. That's kind of a tough year to be graduating from college with the Depression starting, the stock market crash. He found a job in Philadelphia, and hence all of my siblings were born and reared there. However, Dad, being a Citadel grad, gave me no choice of any place else to go but to the best military college in the world, the Citadel. So
you
came back
attended
here.
the Citadel.
I
then.
did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as a military guy?
No.
Does Kim? Yeah. Yeah.
Most probably, but no, I don't. But it really is the best thing, one of the best things I've ever done.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Those 4 years there.
Mm-hmm. The friends and the camaraderie and the education is unparalleled anywhere, in my opinion.
What's the Citadel like? I mean, for viewers who aren't familiar with it, our viewers in the PD or Southeast North Carolina, or even down here, what's it like being down there? And do you go back there often?
Well,
Changed?
go back often, and it continually evolves. I mean, any living, breathing organism or organization will change, and the Citadel changes, but still it's an essential military school, and it is a whole different way of life. It's Spartan. But it's just like everybody reads and hears that they kind of tear you down to build you back up. But the end result has been so positive for everybody that I know that's ever been through it or has even started through it. So a lot of the folks that went and didn't finish for whatever reason, they'll always come back and say, "I went there. I'm sorry I didn't finish."
Wow. Yeah. Did you have brothers and sisters growing up there?
I did. I have an elder brother who lives in Philadelphia area and a younger sister who lives in the Philadelphia area, and I have a younger brother who lives in Rockmart, Georgia, which is just between Rome, Georgia and Atlanta.
So 2 have stayed in the Philly area.
Right.
1 in Georgia, and you're here in the Palmetto State, and you've had ties to this state for quite a while.
Oh, a long time, yeah. Started working my career after I graduated from the Citadel in 1965. And left in 1968, but came back here in 1993, and have been right here in Myrtle Beach ever since.
You've been in Myrtle since 93.
93.
I thought for some reason you'd gotten back here in 90, but I knew it was the early 90s. Mm-hmm. You've been back here. Of course, you probably got active in the March of Dimes as soon as you could.
As a matter of fact, I was active in the March of Dimes before I got here.
Really?
And I think that's where, we've talked about this before, Greg,
Sure.
and that's where you came up with that 1990. In 1990, I joined a predecessor of Wachovia, First Union, in Gainesville, Florida.
Right.
And they were very active in the March of Dimes. And as a first union employee, I didn't have too much to say whether or not I wanted to be part of it. We were going to be part of the March of Dimes, and started my volunteering efforts with them at that time.
What was that like, Nick, being down in Gainesville, of course, coming in for the first time and having the opportunity to be with them down there, and, of course, opening the doors to be active with them up here?
It was very exciting times down in Gainesville, and, you know, we talk about our walk that we have here, and this was 3 to 5 mile walk,
right,
depending on where we have it. Down there, they had a mini marathon. They had 13.5-mile walk every year.
Come on.
Right, and with all those college students and everything, it was the most fun. We always had blisters.
Oh, yeah.
And the team that raised the most money every year, one award we gave them, it was a bronzed boot that was all ripped up, and we called it the Order of the Battered Boot.
Oh, yeah.
And that was every year the award that we got, traveling award we got for raising the most money for the March of Dimes.
So First Union did well with
with the fundraising. Yeah, we really did.
And Wachovia has done the same thing up here. You guys cranked it out. I think over the last couple of years have continued to have one of the top teams for Horry County's WalkAmerica.
They have been doing very well, Greg. I think last year they raised over $25,000.
Oh, yeah, 27.
And they in that range every year, or a little bit more sometimes, a little bit less sometimes, but they've done very well.
It is tremendous when you think about all the work that has to go into volunteer for an organization. You know, when we think about, obviously in a couple of weeks we have the Heart Ball coming up. So much that goes involved to try to raise $400,000 in the same way. All the volunteers that get active in the March of Dimes. But then there's some real easy things you do. Just show up, encourage folks to make a few donations, and use even dimes back as far back as 70 years ago. Using dimes, you could still use dimes today.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we don't mind passing that bucket around and asking for loose change or whatever. And it all adds up.
It does.
It really does. And it's for... And, you know, really, if you ask someone, very rarely does someone not help out. I mean, people are so generous, and particularly for something like the March of Dimes that's well known and recognized.
Oh, yeah. You know, when you get into the drive-through, and not only Wachovia, I'm sure a lot of banks, community banks, national banks, regional banks, whatever bank it is, the same commitment is there to help out the March of Dimes. All the times pulling up in the Wachovia drive-through and seeing these baby boots all around, or coming into y'all's lobby and seeing the boots there, and to know there's, even if if a teller or a banker doesn't say anything about it, it's still that sign of a boot there, making you think and you want to ask, what's this about? How can I be involved?
Right, exactly. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes you say, well, would you like to buy a boot? And rather than saying how much, they'll give us $10, $20.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just really, they're very generous, very nice. But most folks do have a general idea what March of Dimes is all about and the good that it does. So it makes that fundraising job so much more pleasant and easy to do.
Absolutely. If a viewer needs to get off to school now or get out to work, Nick, is there a good number that someone could call, whether it's to learn about today's event at the Hard Rock Cafe at 4:30, or even any other volunteer donation opportunities?
Well, sure. I think just call the office, the March of Dimes offices in Conway. It's 488-3463. That's 488-DIME.
D-I-M-E.
D-I-M-E.
Easy to remember,
Right.
488-DIME. And, of course, it is just that easy to make the phone call, whether, again, it's for an activity like today at 4:30 or like the WalkAmerica Kickoff, the event itself, which is in late April.
Correct. You call over there, they'll find out how real easy it is if they get to speak with Joe or Colleen. I mean, they'll just make it so easy for you to get involved and fun.
Absolutely.
And they'll sit there and hold your hand for about 2 minutes, but then they'll get you going, and they get you going in a hurry. So.
And they do. There's a ton of great materials, lots of stuff, not only for WalkAmerica, but year-round. There's activities going on. Of course, the PD division of the March of Dimes has walks all over the place, whether it's in Georgetown or in Loris. They've got one in Lake City. Of course, there's another walk in Florence, but there's one in Dillon, in Marion, in Marlborough County. They're all over. I don't know how the heck did Joe and Colleen, just last week, they were doing stuff all over.
Only 2 people run that huge operation, and you know that they're wonderful, dedicated servants to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot of work, and that's why we need volunteers. So if any of the viewers would be interested in getting involved in the March of Dimes, 488 Dime, and we'll get you started.
Absolutely, Nick. Let's think about, well, real quick, about the March of Dimes. For viewers who may not be familiar with the March of Dimes, could you share with them a little bit about when it kicked off and what its mission was, and has that evolved?
Well, it started approximately 70 years ago, and it started with President Roosevelt. And a lot of people may or may not know he had polio and was partially paralyzed and had a very difficult time getting around. Most of the film footage and everything you saw of him was kind of from his waist up, so you never really knew that he had those issues. But infantile paralysis, they called it at the time, and it was running rampant and through the country. And he made a speech one time, said that he was going to see what he could do to help eradicate polio, and that he was going to start the March of Dimes, and I think it was with Jimmy Durante.
Really?
Or Al, who was a famous comic, Al Jolson. I think it was either one of those two guys. And they had radiothons, and they asked everybody to send their dimes into the White House.
Oh, yeah.
So that began the March of Dimes.
And folks sent them in.
Absolutely, sent them in. And then when I was growing up, a little boy in school, we used to have these little coin cards, and we used to put our dimes in there. And every year we had our March of Dimes. And then the march started marching. We started taking them around to our neighbors and collecting our dimes to turn into school. And in 1953, I think it was, Dr. Jonas Salk, with March of Dimes Foundation support, invented the Salk vaccine that cured polio.
That is incredible.
And in the meantime, they had built up this wonderful cadre of volunteers nationwide, and they say, geez, what do we do now, because we've met our mission.
Right. Which is so rare for a nonprofit or a charitable organization.
They pretty much had met their mission, so what do we do now? And they got together and started looking around and trying to figure out what to do. And of course, they had always been involved in children's issues, primarily with polio, since it usually struck the young. But then they kept the group together and said, well, let's go ahead and try to attack birth defects.
Yes.
And from there, we continue on today with our birth defects campaigns and, of course, our premature.
5 years ago, back in 2003, kicking off the push to really fight prematurity and get the word out and reduce prematurity. And, of course, when you talk to folks, Holly Hayes was with us last Wednesday, Nick, the statewide director for program services, and she'd been here, I understand, a couple weeks ago with Kathy Douglas for the Horry County Division board meeting. But it was fascinating hearing her talk about when that kicked off 5 years ago. There's still a desire constantly to fund research so that people find out why premature births are happening on such a high volume.
And they still don't know. There has been some research done. They have some thoughts, but every time they think that they've got a good angle on it, then it's dispelled, and then there's something else that. So we continue to work on it, and it takes so much money, Greg, so much time. And March of Dimes has really had its efforts and aimed right in on that area for the last 5 years.